It's time once again for another thrilling episode of Mark Out Radio. For the next hour, sit back, pull the stick out of your ass, and enjoy. Be warned though, smarks and internet know-it-alls will be offended, annoyed, and generally pissed off at what's about to happen to your ear holes. You've been warned. Now, Mark Out Radio.
All right, welcome to Mark Out Radio. It's your boy Dark Fucks here again with you this week. And, well, listen. Another bullshit 1 hour show in a show that's been 2 hours for God knows how long now. Because the NWA makes more money than the NWO does. Aww. It's kind of sad when you put it that way, isn't it? That's kind of mean, actually. I'm stop to think about it. Sorry, guys. All right, this is Market Radio episode 86 for May the 5th, 1997, out of the Jenkins Arena or the Lakeland Arena, depending on which bump of a break Tony's coming off of in Lakeland, Florida, hosted by Tony Schiavone, Larry Zabisco, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. This is Nitro's 47th win in a row with 3.2 to Raw's 2.8. And I actually feel kind of bad for Eric. He's in a lurch, and the thing is, the NBA finals are going on. So he's lucky he's getting an hour of airtime at all while still being told that he has to compete with Raw, barely squeaking out a victory this week in the ratings again, while building to the Slamboree pay-per-view. I actually do kind of feel bad for him, like in a little bit. Come on, a little bit I feel bad. It's just, well,
now you start using your head. That's not love. That's 3 feet above your ass. Are you crying? Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying.
That's not
There's
funny.
no crying in baseball.
Anyways, tonight there is a gate of $57,748 since WCW did not put on a 2 hour show prior to Nitro going on air. This was a legit 90-minute show with a 2 hour long or two long dark matches and a couple of promos before Nitro went on the air. Still, they drew a record. They drew a crowd of 4,701 with 3,512 actually paying to be there. No merch stats this week. Yes, thank you. I know. Listen, I can only deal with what I got, and we don't got that. The live show kicks off with Flair getting a beat down from Hall from last week, just as Piper was getting out of the ring. We seamlessly transition into Tony asking Piper the hard question as Piper, Flair, and Green invade the announce position, and Tony hands him a hardwired mic. I'm using a little bit of NWO chicanery here as a banner unrolls behind the announcer's desk that reads Tradition Bites in that NWO font, and with the logo, Flair draws attention to it, which was Green's cue to rip it down. And then an even larger banner unrolls in front of the set. Piper loses his shit, and the old men storm off from the set, taking their linebacker with them out to the ring. Now, after the intro vignette, we go live to the ring where the NWO leaflets are dropping from the rafters. This has been an excellent build towards Slamboree. I really, really hope the match itself lives up to the hype. I cannot remember it. I will be watching it tonight because, it's next to my viewing queue. Oh, by the way, just in case you're tuning in for the first time this week or you're curious, I'm going to be doing 2 shows this week. Why? Because we're back to doing shitty short shows, and I'm getting bored doing short shows where I'm trying to find something to talk about to take us to that 30-minute mark, and I'm coming up short. So we're going to have this one and then another one today, so there'll be a twofer for all you Twitch, podcast, and you tired people out there. Anyways, back on this episode of the show, the camera pans out to the arena to 2 more Tradition Bites banners. Piper starts ranting a little bit until J.J. Dillon comes out to clarify the situation. Amusing, though, that a former Horseman would talk some shit about mind games. It is what it is. Whatever. I mean, now because this went so long, WCW was short on airtime, but Green took the mic from Flair. Right? That's like taking the mic from Okerlund. Anyways, by then the Public Enemy's music was already going, so it looked and sounded like shit at the end. Green kept talking into the microphone, but the live camera was back on the whole crowd and the entrance ramp. And then it went to the entrance ramp itself while Green kept rambling in the ring. Now, his mic was dead, so no one heard anything. The only people actually responding to anything he was saying were the people that could hear him in the first couple of rows. Eventually, Piper, Flair, and Green leave the ring, Flair going out via the live camera angle as an additional fuck you to Eric, who, yes, they were still butting heads. I will give Flair this, though. The money for this feud seems to be all being spent on NWO gimmicks, and his stuff all gets worked into a shoot. Now, first match of the night is Hugh Morrus and Konnan defeating the Public Enemy, Johnny Grunge, and Flyboy Rocco Rock. I gave it 2.5 out of 5. Morrus and Konnan struggled to set up a table as the bell rings. I'm not quite sure why this is so difficult. When you start off wrestling, you're essentially wrestling in bingo halls and town halls. Setting up a table should not be difficult, even a worked one. Hard at one point was on a table as Konnan makes the save. After a string of botchy bullshit angles at ringside, Public Enemy get a weakened Konnan back between two tables and then is saved by the last minute from Hart with a botched table dive from Grunge from the top rope to the outside to get yet another injury. So that's always awesome, right? Konnan brings a table into the ring, leaves the legs pointed out, proving that even in hardcore matches, he just can't help but try to legit hurt other performers, which is super awesome. Rocco puts Konnan on the table and heads to the top rope where Morrus cuts him off and performs a superplex onto Konnan, who braced for about an hour before Rocco hit him. The ref scoots in to perform the count as Konnan and Rocco were down, leading to Tony to scream into the microphone, "Who got pinned?" I don't know, dude. Look at your call sheet. What the fuck do you want us to tell you? Back from break, we see more Tradition Bites banners as the NWO is back to their roots of covering over WCW banners and logos with their own branding. After this, Syxx defends against Rey Mysterio and he retains the WCW World Cruiserweight Championship. I gave that 3 out of 5. Rey performs some really fucking awful Spider-Man cosplay bullshit with a ball of streamers into the fucking camera. Jesus. You know, the thing is, to be fair here, Rey is the height of my fucking 10-year-old child. So her doing that in a Spider-Man outfit would make perfect sense. But this guy's in his 20s. Anyways. Syxx is not wearing wrestling gear and doesn't have the title, but he starts nailing Rey. He goes in for the Bronco Buster. Rey just literally sticks his leg up, which I wonder why more people than WWF didn't do this. Nash and Hall interfere with Rey looking strong, fighting them off for a bit before Hall nails Rey and delivers the NWO bomb, according to Tony, which is not what that move is called. The rechristened Razor's Edge is now called the Outsider's Edge, which admittedly wasn't a very creative way to say fuck you to Vince, but it satisfies copyright standards, so whatever. The NWO bomb, if it's anyone's finisher, would be Nash's powerbomb variant, wouldn't it? Anyways. Syxx slaps on the Buzz Killer, which remains a crossface chicken wing and half sleeper deal. Still looks good, still looks safe. The bell rings as Syxx won't release the hold. JJ Dillon and Kenny Powers, what? Oh, sorry, right. Nick Patrick. Anyways, they come down to the ring so that Patrick can eat a light beating from Hall and Nash while the rest of the NWO make their way to ringside. Bischoff this week is rocking a Star Trek Mirror Universe goatee. I guess this means that he is now evil or something. Anyways, he gets in Dillon's face and tells him that he's got no power here and no stroke. The announcers wonder aloud where the WCW wrestlers are. Good question. Syxx, okay, listen, let me fix that here since he's about to break kayfabe in a big, big way on a live camera. Sean Waltman gets into James Morrison's face and screams, "If you think you're going to pull the same crap you pulled from McMahon here, you've got another thing coming." All right, so first, hello? FCC? Oh, right, there's another fine. Sweet. Second, yes, after leaving WCW in 1989 and retiring as an in-ring talent, JJ Lynn went on to the WWF where he held a bunch of front office positions from talent scout to booker, road agent, writer, talent relations manager, etc. Essentially, Sean Waltman here blames Dillon for ruining his 1-2-3 Kid run. Dillon was never hot on Waltman, and the only reason the 1-2-3 Kid run lasted as long as it did was because of Hall and Nash pushing for it. What? Producer boy doesn't know what I'm fucking talking. The 1-2-3 Kid. This is Waltman's first gimmick. Really? All right, cool. Backstory. I always love doing these. Now, Dillon booked a jobber match between The Kid at the time and Razor Ramon. Now, Hall had just come back from injury, and JJ was trying to rebuild him into the IC champ again because Hall was money as the IC champ. But little did he know that Waltman was in tight with Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. The Clique, as they became known. Now, they decided that it would be much more interesting to have The Kid get a cheap roll-up victory against the much larger and over Razor Ramon. They talked Vince into it even after Dylan squashed the idea. So, on a live broadcast of Raw, The Kid gets a roll-up against Razor, and this goes into a program the two works for a few weeks. Eventually, Dylan convinced McMahon that The Kid was talented, but not at the level of Razor Ramon, and the newly named 1-2-3 Kid ended up jobbing out to the entire fucking locker room, including the Brooklyn Brawler. So it's entirely possible that look, if you pause the look at Waltman screaming at Dylan, you can see that tortured pain in his eyes, which I understand. I'm not making fun of it, but it got a little real. Did Eric put Waltman up to it? Possibly. I mean, Eric didn't really hire Dylan. Dylan was legit hired by Dr. Schiller as a performer who was a manager in kayfabe only. So it wouldn't surprise me that this was part work, part shoot. Now, based on Nash's observably awful acting ability and the sheer perverse pleasure he was getting watching Syxx cut a promo on Dylan and then cutting on him as well, with Bischoff, of course, also not being able to contain himself from breaking kayfabe, I'm going to lean on shoot here and just, go out on a limb a little bit.
Oh my God!
Anyways, back from break, it's that time again for that golden voice bastard Lee Marshall to call in with a 1-800-COLLECT road report from Baltimore, Maryland, where Nitro will be next week. Marshall takes the crabs joke here at Heenan's expense, which it's not really well known, but Heenan did enjoy the ring rats, and they weren't always the cleanest of ladies. And I'm getting my fucking producer waving in the air again at me. What? You don't know what a ring rat is? What the fuck? Is this your first wrestling show? No? Jesus Christ. All right. Puck Bunny? No. Holy fuck. Jesus Christ. Footballer wife? No. Whore who likes to fuck muscly dudes because they're famous. Oh, okay. That's resounding with you. Fantastic. All right. Ring rats are that. Why are you looking at me like I'm saying something controversial? They still exist today, and there are male ones now too. Woo-hoo. Anyways, Hogan comes out to cut a promo with Bischoff. Eric tees up the Sting feud, and the fans take the cue and start chanting for Sting. The announcers point out that Luger is the one who's actually earned a title shot here, and the NWO injured him in Japan accidentally on purpose. After this, we get a Lord Steven Regal. What the fuck is going on? Okay, thank you. Versus Meng, ends in a no contest.
0.0.
Now, there's no rope for Regal this week, but there's no explanation on why. I thought it might be due to time constraints, but it's because he's dispensing with the Lord version of it, and he's going to go back to his Blackpool roots. So enjoy that. Meng comes out without a jacket, and no Jimmy Hart at his side. The match lasts for about 6 seconds before Sullivan, Hart, and Jackie come out. No one knows what they're doing, so this becomes an entire clusterfuck, which probably would have been fine at a house show, but on live TV with live microphones on every single camera that's catching the action, everyone can hear everyone else calling each other by their real names, except when they realize, holy fuck, there's a camera there, because you can actually see Sullivan look up and go, ooh, fuck. And then they start calling each other the kayfabe names, and then they fuck it up and they call each other their real names again. It was just, and Sullivan pulls Jackie off and she looks at him like she's legit gonna fucking punch him. The whole thing was a colossal fucking clusterfuck.
0.0.
And none of it was any good. Just all of it was just awful. Just brutal shit. Awful, awful, awful. Of course, Sullivan's in charge of it. Jesus Christ. And this whole thing, by the way, that the announcers couldn't even get to was to sell how dangerous Meng is, who will be facing Benoit at Slamboree in a couple of weeks. You can sort of hear Benoit screaming at Meng that this is not Benoit, or hit him like he's Benoit. I couldn't make out because he's screaming it so loud that it was making the microphone pop, which is, of course, saying something coming from me. Now, back from break, we get a DDP vignette profiling DDP and his cutter finisher, and then the NWO heat that he has, specifically with Savage, to keep that heat going until the Great American Bash. With this is followed by a DDP Okerlund Kim ramp promo after Kim almost takes a spill in those fucking platform heels. The promo itself was decent. Nothing wrong with it, really. Everyone sort of delivers their lines reasonably well. Of course, Savage is going to interrupt, and that went reasonably well, too. There's nothing really to write home about here. The idea here is just to make sure that the heat is kept on this feud. Next week, for the show later on today, we'll get a little better on this, but this was basically just to remind us that there's heat between DDP and Savage and to keep building that tension for the audience. After this, Jeff Jarrett defeats Alex Wright. I gave that 2.5 out of 5. Wright gets an entrance, but a fan got a little bit grabby with him and he breaks kayfabe to shove him. Sort of. See, I want to caveat this just a little bit because, yes, Alex Wright broke kayfabe to shove him, but Alex Wright's current gimmick is to get heel heat while acting like he's always acted as a face before. The idea here is to slowly transition Alex Wright into a heel. Again, this will eventually evolve into Berlin, which was just awful. Anyway, Jarrett and Deborah get an entrance, but avoid getting touched by the crowd, which plays into their gimmick to perfection. This being Florida, of course, though, there was a shoving match in the front row that brought out a blonde security guard who separated the two men shoving each other and put 2 kids and a woman between them. Dude, you gotta love Florida. I mean, you can't even show up for a fucking wrestling show without getting into a fight yourself. Now, going into break, there was a throwback to the heat between Mongo and Reggie White just because there wasn't enough time to build that feud during Nitro for Slamboree with this shortened-ass show. After this, Glacier defeats Lizmark Jr.
0.0.
Jesus. Lizmark Jr. gets an entrance. Glacier, of course, does as well. The match lasts about 7 seconds, including the fucking 3 count. There's not really much to say about Lizmark here. I mean, his dad was more famous than he was, but he did eventually have better mask designs in the future. For this one, he kind of looks like generic luchador number 3. And frankly, after making him drop this goddamn hard to Glacier of all fucking people, I'd change up my look too. Post-match is a beatdown from Morrus, who is joined by Wrath as Glacier starts mounting an offense, and then we end up going to break. Harlem Heat after this, Booker T and Stevie Ray with Sister Sherry versus The Giant, and DDP ends before it even starts, which is why it's not on the call sheet for the show and why it won't get rated. Now, this was more of an action-based promo. Giant comes out and announces that Luger is hurt, but he still has a tag team partner in DDP, which gets a huge pop. As Kim's coming out, she loses the heels at the top of the ramp to avoid another near fall. Savage and Liz are waiting off to the right of the ramp, and Savage uses Liz as a human shield from DDP until Hogan comes out and blasts DDP with a crutch. Savage keeps Kim there by grabbing her by the hair, and then the NWO invade the ring, laying out the Giant and Harlem Heat. One thing that stuck out to me here was that I'm fairly sure that Wall Street's NWO contract was voided a couple of weeks ago by J.J. Dillon, so why he's in the ring in an NWO shirt is beyond me. Flair and Green come out. They leave Green to be handled by Norton and Wall Street, who are legit tough guys who can control that roided up tackling dummy. Piper gets in the ring and gets held in a sleeper by Nash. That wasn't on Cornette's list of Nash's moveset, by the way. Just saying. If it hadn't been for the main event promo, this episode would have sucked. The NWO banners, breaking kayfabe promos that went over huge, and the last segment left people largely satisfied with this week's show. Even in retrospect, I was reasonably satisfied. It draws a score of 3 out of 5 out of Markout Radio. This week and next week, though, are the lowest ratings Nitro's going to have for the next year. We're about to embark on WCW's heyday now. Over the next 12 months, the ratings will have a much wider margin than ever before, and the NWO and the WWE's Attitude Era are going to actually make wrestling cool to watch again.
Well, that was an abortion of a show. Should the mood take you, check out markoutradio.com and leave a comment. You can also find links there to our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Stitcher channels. You can even leave a voicemail on our Skype. Just click the links and share them.